Hi guys, what I'm going to do is just clip two, how to develop the offensive line within the UK based on my experiences, my little bit of knowledge. Again, this is not the be all and end all in terms of um, the absolute way to do things. Obviously, we all have our own interpretations, we all have our own styles, we all have what we like to do. But again, it's good for coaches to pass it on. And if you can take anything from what I'm doing, whether that be as a new coach, an experienced coach, or whatever, then great. That's what it's all about. So, just to recap, on the first clip, we talked about mindset, we talked about habits, we talked about things like that. I am going to do an additional clip in terms of um, everything now that we've developed our practice planner. You now understand what the head coach wants. Sorry, you now understand what the OC wants and what he's looking for. You've developed, you understand the system. You developed your blocking schemes. Within that, you've now developed a set of drills. Within that, you've now drawn up a practice planner. I work to 5-minute blocks. Um, Again, from that, you've developed your set of drills. I am going to talk about the drills on a separate clip, so just bear with me on that because it is quite a long process. But again, one thing I believe that these clips talk about is the stuff that, or the topics that aren't necessarily talked about a lot, wherever you go, which is mindset, which is muscle memory, which is habits, all these little things that are not necessarily covered. We focus so much on the drill, we don't really get to the point of what the content is of that drill, what the outcome is. Okay, a lot for me is about developing approach. It's about, and that's from before your linemen, before your personnel turn up on the practice field. It's all about approach. One thing that offensive linemen need is to feel settled. It develops confidence and it enables them to go about their business and to be able to do their job. To develop confidence, they need to really understand what is required of them, and that's all about the approach. Okay, really, really, really important stuff. Um, what I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to give a big shout out to the Tamworth Phoenix. I didn't do it in the last clip. As you can see, big on family, PH. Um, Anybody that's really looking or in a bit of a quandary at the moment in terms of where they want to go, if they want to look to improve or anything else, these are the guys that are going to give you that. They're a great bunch of guys. Everybody gets a chance, and they are definitely a winning team. I think they prove that by against all the odds. Everybody kind of writ them off. Winning the national championship 2017, and that is based on exactly what I'm talking about. There was a bunch of coaches there that really kind of didn't accept excuses, always demanded the best, and most importantly was honest. Okay, even though we won games, that we was always honest. You can always get that little bit more out the guys. Okay, be fair but be honest. Okay, so great set of guys. If you're looking to join a team, that's the winning program. Okay, so big up to the Tamworth Phoenix. Uh, Love you all to bits. So we're going to get into just talking a little bit about mindset again before we get into the system, and about the Tamworth Phoenix. I work with a bunch of guys that I affectionately call, doesn't matter what team I'm at, my grunts, trench grunts. They really are the warriors, whether that be defence or offensive guys. Many, many good battles with the other side of the ball with Coach Steele, with the defensive boys. The warriors of the line, the warriors of the trenches. I absolutely love, the grunts within the trenches. One thing that the boys did on the offensive line, they they won the teams that nobody expected them to win. 10-0, and they did exactly what everybody didn't expect them to do, which was to beat the bigger, seemingly more aggressive, more technical teams, which was the London Warriors, which we beat in the semi-final, and the London Blitz, which we beat in the final. Nothing's ever perfect, but I believe that What we did was or should I say, the boys or the grunts entered that game knowing exactly what was expected of them. They dealt with the game under extreme pressure. Um, they really just executed as best they possibly could. More importantly, they were consistent under extreme pressure again. And eventually they just churned it out as they did with the Warriors. The Warriors were, again, much bigger team, much more physical if you want to look in terms of sheer size. But one thing more importantly, the Warriors, what I noticed was the sheer will to win. Absolutely unbelievable. We had a bunch of guys there that were written off because they were undersized, etc. But what they did was took guys on the other side of the line that were twice their size. To be honest, some of them was. They moved them around. They kept just punching, and eventually we got the job done. So yeah, big shout out to the grunts on the Phoenix offensive line and the defensive line. You know, they really got the job done. So massive shout out to them. My point being is, guys, that you can achieve the impossible by just having good fundamentals, getting your guys ready, okay, and just executing as well as you possibly can. Remember, just achieve consistency. That's what we're looking to do. Not just with your one guy, with your 5 guys. Utilise your coaching points, understand what you're doing, put a good plan in place, keep it simple. Okay, keep it simple. You will prevail. Okay, right then, guys. So I'm going to just go into how to develop a pass protection system. It's the holy grail, isn't it? The pass protection system. How do we do this? How do we do that? How do we beat this front? How do we deal with that front? I believe what I've got, and again, it's not the be-all and end-all. We always have to have multiple systems to deal with multiple different fronts and blitzes, you know, stunts and whatever it is that the defense brings at us. But what I think I've done is understand the constraints that we work to within the UK 20-minute, for example, Fundy session. Not much, you know, in terms of install time. You know, we're working to a 2-hour block. We've got to get everything in. So what I've done is I think I've developed a pretty simple system, a pretty robust system, again, something I can hang my hat on, that works, taking into consideration the time constraints, skill sets, and obviously all the fronts, etc., they're going to be facing. So first and foremost, what do I do in terms of my pass protection system? There's 2 basic systems that I like to work to, which is your half slide or man zone and the bob, the big on big. Okay. Obviously, you could talk about full slides and things like that as things develop, but rarely have I had to use a full slide. Okay, so, and the reason why that is I try to utilise every personnel I can within that pass protection scheme. What it does do is it forces a team, especially an offence and the coaches, to think slightly differently. So from an offensive line coach point of view, again, coach well, get people to buy in what you're looking at, okay? Remember we spoke about meeting in the middle. So your OC is looking for this. Maybe you're looking for that, okay? Meet in the middle. Drive what you want, okay? Because, yeah, looking at a game from an offensive line perspective isn't necessarily looking at it from a running back's perspective or a QB coach perspective. So again, it's just about getting everybody on board, okay? But nevertheless, our job is the most important job. We've got to protect that quarterback. So, first and foremost, developing the system, or should I say, developing my philosophy within that system is I always look at the worst or the best possible scenario, depending on which way you look at it. I know that the majority of teams that I work with are always going to want to release. Doesn't matter what system you're in. That's what I'm saying. Keep it simple. They're always going to want to release the receivers, obviously, tight ends. A lot of coaches now would sooner have a tight end, kind of running a route to get past to as opposed to being stuck in blocking, and then depending on what system you're in, or if you're a 2-back system, get them running backs to check out, check down into an empty set. So essentially what you're left with is a QB and your 5 down offensive linemen. Okay, so what a lot of teams talk about is your 50, your 60, your 70 protection. What I try and do is put a bit of a twist on that in terms of how can I get the best out of everybody that's on the field. One thing that we see all too often is when a linebacker breaks the line of scrimmage, gets through, because at the end of the day we've only got 5 offensive linemen, they can only block 5 people. So when an additional person breaks through, everybody ends up panicking, and they need to put in a running back, they need to put in a tight end, we need to hold this, we need to bring a slot in. There's all these things, and I've played offensive line for many years, and I've often found myself scratching around with my teammates going, you know what, if we call that, you do that, what I like to do is kind of change the way we look at that in terms of how to utilise the most important player on the pitch, which is your QB. Okay, he can become part of the pass protection scheme. And again, we're still focusing on mindset here, a philosophy, before we get to how we actually install the system, which again I'll do on a separate clip. Okay, what this will do when we start to look at the QB in terms of a head coach, in terms of the OC, and in terms of you as an offensive line coach, is understand that the QB can be just as effective as an offensive lineman or a down lineman. A lot of people struggle with that. You tend to find it's more towards the end or the second half of the season that, hey, this actually does work, because we may kind of play around with it at the start of the season. It's not easy to get people to buy into it. But obviously the second half of the season, when people have had a chance to watch game film, they maybe bring more elaborate blitzes and fronts and stunts because they want to try and out-scheme you. That's when this philosophy comes into its own. What it also does, it changes the way we coach a QB. We see it in the NFL all the time, okay? Their QB is a massive part of the pass protection scheme. What we see over here, the QB just got to get rid of the ball. Okay, we like to think we introduce hot routes and things like this. We don't really. We just got to get rid of the ball. Okay, that can be underthrown, overthrown, and it really affects confidence throughout everybody. Again, it's about mindset. It's about achieving the end goal. Everybody, coaches, players, they all have an integral part to play. Really, really, really important. So how do we utilise the QB within the pass protection scheme? Okay, let's just imagine that we've released everybody. They're all out running routes. So as an offensive line coach, as an OC, that's the way you've got to think about it. So how do I utilise this? I'm not going to talk about my half slide, man zone or bob at this moment in time, okay? So just ignore the scribbles, focus on the QB. Focus on the fact that the QB is as good as an extra down lineman, okay? So what we're going to do, just for the sake of me explaining this, we're just going to run, let's just put a bog standard 5-man heavy lining. Everybody's covered, Bob, big on big. Okay, what we're going to look to do here is we're just going to bring in, we're going to assume this is the strong side, we're going to have a sandbacker there. Okay, we now understand that my 5 guys cannot block this guy here. Okay, we'll talk about systems in a minute. We'll get to the nitty gritty in a minute. This is about just the philosophy. This is how to utilise the QB. So how do we utilise this guy? We know that this guy's going to blitz. Do we just get rid of the ball? Do we do what most teams do? Do we leave a running back in there? Do we put a tight end in there? The answer is no. Simply no. The key is don't panic. Just don't panic. The key is to utilising that QB within your system. Understand that the QB releasing that ball at the right time is as good as an offensive lineman halting that blitz. Okay, really, really, really important. What that will do when you get comfortable with that concept It forces you to coach, for example, with the QB, not just going through footwork for footwork's sake, not just going through everything just because there's nothing else in your remit that you can do. What it does it forces other drills. For example, like pocket presence, like evasion, like recognizing and working under pressure, i.e. blitzer in my face, coming into my area, to my zone, throwing around things, over the top of things. All these little drills that you can build in, because what you want to be able to do, okay, is utilize that QB within your blocking scheme. Okay, so how is it as good as or just as effective as a down lineman? Because I'm just going to put a slot there, guys. Let's just call him S for now. I know for a fact if this guy's blitzing and I allow my route to develop, okay, when this guy gets in a comfortable area for your QB and he releases the ball, we're going to get a catch. Okay, we're going to get a catch. What it will do is achieve two things. It will halt the blitz, okay, which is as good as an offensive lineman blocking him, but it will also achieve yardage. Really, really, really simple. Okay, really, really, really simple. So now I automatically straight away have a scenario where I've changed a simple concept of everybody focusing on 5 offensive linemen or down linemen to 5 down linemen and the QB. Okay, really, really, really simple way to think. What I can do now is allow my OC to release running backs, okay, to release the tight ends and to release the receivers, depending on what system you're in. Okay, so now I've turned a 5 or 50 or whatever it is you want to call it into utilising the QB as well. On the back side of that, it will allow you to coach slightly differently, get your QB better prepared, develop your QB within GB or the UK, which he will thank you for, develop confidence, which develops the mindset of the offense, and it covers a whole array of topics. The most important thing is as a DC, defensive coordinator, if they see that shit, this QB works under pressure. We've got an offensive line that knows what they're doing, sorry. And we're always going to have a man there that potentially we can throw to. It doesn't matter how you work it, you put in hot routes, it doesn't matter how you work it. You throw to space, you throw to grass, it doesn't matter what your philosophy is. Simply get used to utilising that quarterback. Okay, so hopefully guys you take a little bit from that. What we'll talk about in the next clip is the actual system itself in terms of the blocking scheme, but hopefully, obviously some of you guys are already towards the back end of your season if you're in uni, or in the mid-season at least, mid-part of your season. Get used to utilising that QB as part of your pass protection scheme. So any questions guys, by all means mail me, but yeah, just get using that and let me know how you get on.